Peace, peace. Greetings to you all. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, aka Mr. Just the Facts. Tonight, we are continuing our dissection of the House Bill HR 40 that's supposed to be about reparations. Got my brother Dr. Logic in the building. You know, we're gonna get it in tonight, and I want everybody to click like, click share. This is important for us as reparationists to understand exactly what's going on with this HR 40 bill, because this thing is it's just not right. This is a serious issue for those of us who have examined the numbers, who have looked at the data, who have looked at the statistics, who have seen the economic forecasts, which show that by 2053, the middle black family will be worth $0. We have to be in a fight for our lives, family. So tonight we got my brother Ali on deck. We got our brother Josh. He's gonna be jumping in and out. But tonight we're gonna get into HR 40. So I started on an article, and what I'm gonna do to open this up is read from this article that I started on. I didn't finish it. It's not a long read at all. But then I'm gonna get into some of the differences, some of the problems with this HR 40 bill, and then the bros are going to come in and completely finish dissecting this thing, and we're going to make comparisons to the Japanese Commission, etc. So in his 1911 book, My Larger Education, Booker T. Washington warned of certain leaders and influencers within the black community that he described as problem profiteers. He explained, there is another class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public. Having learned that they are able to make a living out of their troubles, they have grown into the settled habit of advertising their wrongs, partly because they want sympathy and partly because it pays. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs. The brutal murder of George Floyd and the seemingly standstill caused by the coronavirus has forced the spotlight onto America's racially motivated injustice problem. As the vestiges of racism and oppression fall throughout the country, as upheaval grips this nation and the voices of dissent scream in unison, the most discernible cry in the cacophony, next to the police, of course, are the calls for reparations, which is the ultimate form of justice. Over the past 2 years, and more specifically last year, with the advent of an advocacy movement that was started online using the hashtag and acronym hashtag ADOS or ADOS, the topic of reparations has not been the center of either social or political attention. As the ADOS movement, the American descendants of slavery, began pushing for reparations and an overall black agenda, pushback began to mount by specific individuals, particularly in media, and usually connected to a group called NCOBRA, which is the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. NCOBRA is headed by a man named Cam Howard, and the group boasts of an impressive list of backers. The problem with NCOBRA is that they have been a defunct organization over the past several decades and haven't made much movement on the issue of reparations since their inception. Their idea of reparations is not specific to Native Black Americans. Instead, it uses America as the centripetal nexus to which reparations must be meted out to all Africans all over the worldwide diaspora. And I'm going to bring that up in a little while. Use of the phrase New Africa can be heard by some of its members who purport to push for reparations. Such a term has no place in our push for reparations. The ADOS movement has gained and caused such a groundswell that, and by, I should say, critiquing presidential candidates who push for specific policies for everybody except our people, the Native Black Americans, that it caused prominent voices in Black media, like Angela Rye, like Joy-Ann Reid, who is not an African American, to label and smear the group as a disinformation campaign being pushed by Russian bot accounts. But why? And I think further analysis of HR 40 gives us some clarity. Closer scrutiny of HR 40 led me to believe that, and my bros, to believe that this bill is not about reparations at all, as explained on our last broadcast on this topic, where Brother Logic was breaking down GS 18 pay, which is drafted into that piece of proposed legislation. And GS 18 pay peaks near or at $200,000. We get an understanding of why this thing was so important to certain members of NCOBRA and those people whom are connected to them. So that warning given by Booker T. Washington way back in 1911 illumes itself, and it stands firm today. 4 years ago, when HR 40 was again introduced to the 114th Congress, the 2015-2016 session by John Conyers, it had only 2 co-sponsors. No discernible edits from its first introduction in 1989. And the 115th session of the 2017-2018 version of that bill, we find some discernible edits. And I want to get into those edits, and then I want to bring my brothers in, because I think that we are faced with a pressing issue right now that says that if we do not get in front of this, our reparations claim is never going to manifest. So let's get into some of this real quick. I want my bros to come in and start this breakdown process, because this is very important. Let's go to the HR 40 of 2014-2015. This is section number 4. This is important, right? It says the number and appointment, section 4A. The commission shall be composed of 7 members who shall be appointed within 90 days after the date of enactment of this act, as follows. 3 members shall be appointed by the president. 3 members shall be appointed by the Speaker of the House of Representatives. 1 member shall be appointed by the President pro tempore of the Senate. Now, we have issues with that language. Professor Sandy Darity, in his book, he and Kirsten Mullen's book, From Here to Equality, has a problem with that language, because they feel, as we feel, that if this is a congressional bill and a commission being put together by Congress, then Congress should have the sole authority on whom it appoints to be in this commission. So this, to me, makes no sense. I want to scroll down. Section 8 says that the authorization of appropriations, it says to carry out the provisions of this act, there are authorized to be appropriated $8 million. And this is important when we begin to dissect this thing and we begin to understand the players who are injecting themselves into this bill and into this reparations fight, the players who are getting in front of this thing so that the ADOS movement never creates the proper groundswell needed to get the edits or get the bill scrapped, which is what I'm basically calling for at this point. We'll get to the edits a little bit later. So I just want to go to the 2017-2018 version of this bill, because this is where we get to see the nefarious actions of nefarious characters interjecting themselves, and it gets exposed for what it is, a cash grab, not a bill centered around reparations. Section 4, membership. Remember what I just read from the last version of that bill. But now we see a change. And this change was made by the members of NCOBRA themselves. Remember, on the show before last, when I was reading about how commissions are formed, it said it could be formed by members of Congress and private citizens. So what the private citizens of NCOBRA did was help redraft this version of HR 40. Number and appointment. Section 4A. The commission shall be composed of 13 members who shall be appointed within 90 days after the date of enactment of this act as follows. And it gives the breakdown, which adds this extra section, subsection D, which says 6 members shall be selected from the major civil society and reparations organizations that have historically championed the cause of reparatory justice. Who is that? That is NCOBRA, a group that's founded, I believe, in 1989. Y'all correct me on that if I'm wrong. And I want to scroll down to Section 8 again of this new version of this bill, which says to carry out the provisions of this act, there are authorized to be appropriated $12 million. So it jumped from 8 million to 12 million once you get these 6 new actors to come aboard this bill. So I want my brothers to come in and you know, touch on that and get into your presentations as well and your thoughts centered around this bill, because we've had several discussions around this. We've been watching plenty of videos. We've been listening to just research. We've been listening to Professor Darity and his life partner, Kirsten Mullins, go where we've been listening to other economists break this thing down and show that it makes absolutely no sense at all. Brother Logic?
Yes. And when I'm glad we're doing this on the program tonight. This subject is near and dear to the reparations fight. We have this piece of legislation on the table, and I don't know how fast they're going to move on this thing. I don't know how much time we have, but as reparationists, we have to understand what this means if the bill gets passed in its present state. So we did a program. Dr. Darity's been traveling around talking about it. People from the ADOS community have been calling for the edits, and we've all been working to get this thing halted. We have to continue to put that pressure on, and we have to look at this thing and think outside the box and do things that are outside the box, because we must understand that as this bill reads, we can truly see that it's not really a bill for reparations. The true intent, right, is not to really manifest reparations. You know, we definitely understand that there has been things being done with this even since last time we talked about it. So we just want to bring a lot of those things to attention, but we want to start highlighting why some of the and start talking about why some of the things were changed. And I just don't understand why some of these changes were made. But what we have to what we get other people to get to is analyzing this bill in a way that we can see that we need the language taken out of the bill that would attract people who are really not interested on the commission to really be really dedicated to bringing about a pure reparations program, right? So you have the commission has to be designed in a certain way in order to protect the integrity of the commission. So if there's a lot of pork being laid at the table of the commission, it will serve as a self-interest commission, a commission that's interested in being self-serving. There's too much pork and fat in this bill, and we have to take it out. This bill needs a diet, and it needs it now. We're going to do some history on how the bill got this way, and I want to swing it to my brother Ali, if he doesn't mind, and start talking about the legislative history and how things kind of got where they're at right now.
Well, from what I can tell, the legislative history really is an outgrowth of the Japanese Reparations Act, because it apparently this particular HR 40 in its original form comes right behind the Japanese Americans reparations bill that was signed by Jimmy Carter, I believe it was. And so one of the things that I thought was interesting, just to kind of go into the Japanese portion, coming into the HR 40 thing, the relativeness in terms of the commission that was created for the Japanese American Reparations Commission. And so what I did was I was able to find the particular act that creates that commission. I know that for them, one of the things was there was a debate within the Japanese community, Japanese American community, as to whether or not a commission was even necessary. So let me just read that, right? Because I think the two are relative in terms of the approach. Because it's my opinion that NCOBRA used what the Japanese Americans did, or whoever drafted HR 40 used what the Japanese Americans did as their template to some degree, in terms of crafting it and how these things will be paid for, etc. So let me just read a little bit of this, because I think this is interesting. I want to share it if that's cool. Let me see something here. Give me 1 second. Just pull this.
He's pulling that up. I just want to say we're going to get into this thing tonight. We're going to touch on a little bit later. We'll touch on Kamala's vice presidential pick, or being picked rather by Joe Biden. We're going to touch on a little bit of that as well. Click the like button, family, if you haven't.
And that's interesting too.
Go ahead, brother.
Interesting thing about that is, if she becomes the vice president, she'll be the president of the Senate. The problem is the president of the Senate doesn't have much sway in the Senate other than to break ties. I don't know how, what people think she would be doing as a vice president, and she's already said she's not going to do anything, specifically to help Black people.
No,
I don't know. I don't know what, why people are so excited about it. Let me know if you can. All right, so I see it. All right, so this is getting into some of the history pertaining to the Japanese American Commission, right? Hold on a second. So it says, go ahead. What you gonna say?
OG in the chat, Otis, he said President pro tempore. Would that be Kamala's position?
No.
Okay.
No, she would be the president of the Senate.
Oh, just to say, okay.
Yeah, she would be the president of the Senate. President pro tempore is another position. So look, Commission on Wartime Relocation and Internment of Civilians. Established in 1980, this bipartisan federal commission was directed by Congress to review the facts and circumstances surrounding Executive Order 9066 and its impact on American citizens and permanent resident aliens, as well as Alaskan natives in the Pribilof and Aleutian Islands. To arrive at its findings, the it was only 9 members, federally appointed body held hearings in United States cities and heard testimonies from more than 750 witnesses. Its conclusions were submitted in 1983 as the Personal Journal denied, a unanimous report that formed the basis for the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, granting wartime survivors a public apology, individual reparations of $20,000, and a public education fund. The background is the notion of a federal commission to study the wartime exclusion began in the 70s as a divisive issue in the Japanese American community. The Japanese American Citizens League, led by activist Edison Uno, began a call for reparations with a resolution introduced at its 1970 Chicago convention. As support for redress grew and the number of Japanese American legislators increased, the issue of whether to call for direct monetary payments or to establish a commission to explore the issue became the focus of national debate. Senator Daniel Inouye first proposed the idea of a commission at a meeting with the JACL leaders and 3 fellow Japanese American members of Congress in January of 1979. Members of the Seattle JACL chapter were strongly opposed, but the majority of the JACL's National Committee for Redress realized the commission's value as an educational and political tool. By August of 1979, House and Senate bills were introduced by a bipartisan group of senators led by Senators Inouye and Spark Matsunaga. In the meantime, a bill introduced by Congressman Mike Lowry calling for direct reparations payments and backed by those who opposed the commission course made its way through Congress, but was quickly defeated. By mid-1980, the Senate and House overwhelmingly passed bills calling for the formation of the commission, with an amended Senate provision to investigate the Aleut Native Americans confined in southeastern Alaska at the urging of Republican Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska. This bill was signed into law by President Jimmy Carter in 1980. So just for informational purposes, everybody in the Japanese American community was not on board with the commission, but obviously, you know, they saw a purpose for it, and it was enacted. So one of the other things I found too was the actual public law that establishes their commission. Hold on one second. Let me.
While you're pulling that up, I want to say that when you look at that commission in the names that you were naming, you know, Japanese Americans, and we have Sheila Jackson Lee, who is not ADOS. Right? She's not an American descendant of slavery. And look, I wouldn't care if, just to be honest with you, if your heart was intent on and you were serious about this, and you were took the lead on it, and you acknowledge certain facts, then have at it, right? Let's get this justice done. But there's this almost nonchalant approach that's coming from Sheila Jackson Lee. Like, I've been studying this for the past couple days, and there's something just seriously wrong with this whole thing.
Okay, so we were having a conversation a few days ago about the particular law that establishes the commission for the Japanese Americans and their reparations. So remember, I was telling you guys, it was probably, we could probably find it in the statutes at large, right? And this is exactly where, you know, you can see it. Volume 94 of the statutes at large, page 964. This is Public Law 96-317, July 31st, 1980, right? And this thing says, passed as Senate Bill 1647 to to establish a commission to gather facts to determine whether any wrong was committed against those American citizens and permanent resident aliens affected by executive order numbered 9066 and for other purposes, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. This act may be cited as the Commission on Wartime Relocation and Internment of Civilians Acts. The purpose, it says here, the Congress finds that approximately 120,000 civilians were relocated and detained, blah, blah, blah. You can also find this on the left side. You'll see in the annotation, Title 50 of the United States Code, section is 1981. So it's actually codified at Title 50 United States Code. So you can find it there as well. But I just wanted to show, just so that people, whoever is interested, that wants to know what law it was that actually enacted or established the Commission on Wartime Relocation and Internment, this is the law. Let me just pull it back up just so y'all can see it. Public Law 96-317, July 31st, 1980. 1980, the 96 Congress. It's at the volume 94, the statutes at large, page 964, and is codified Title 50 of the United States Codes, section 1981. So yeah, this, you know, they definitely had a commission. And the crazy thing is, I found during the Obama administration, they were actually trying to put together a second commission. It was a HR 42. I don't know if people know about that. Let me pull that one up too. HR 42, and that was it seems to have John Conyers was involved with that as well. He was heavily involved with that because he was on the judicial. He was a part of the judicial committee at the time, the judiciary. So let me just pull that up.
So do you think John Conyers' involvement was setting up the stage for what he wanted to do with HR 40?
I believe so. And I believe that he probably, I mean, this is just me guessing, but he probably figured creating precedent and even possibly creating allies with through the Japanese Americans by being so involved in pro their reparations. So let me just pull this up.
That makes sense. Politics. Politics is an exchange, right?
Yeah. See, this was called HR 42, but I think what happened is
that's an interesting bill number right there, HR 42.
Yeah, and see, and this one was about Latin Americans of Japanese descent who were taken out of their Latin American homes because they thought they would be a threat to the Western Hemisphere at the time of World War II. So they took these Japanese people and they interned them in camps, I believe, in Texas, if my memory serves me correct. Is that correct, Josh? I think it was Texas, right? Where they were interning these particular Japanese of Latin descent. And so this commission, they were trying to do a second commission under the Obama administration, because this was in 2010 when this thing actually died. But I think what happened is because Obama lost the majority in Congress, it stalled. But they were going to do HR 42 to create a second commission to deal with reparations for Japanese of Latin America who were interned in the United States. So let me just scroll down a little bit just so people could see this one too, and I don't know if people really knew about this one.
It was Crystal City, Texas.
That's where they were interned?
Yeah, it was Crystal City, Texas. That was one of the internment camps.
Right. So here you go. If you look at it, right, these are the actions, right? It's a list of actions. It was introduced on January 6th of 2009 in the House. And February, it referred to the Subcommittee on Immigration, Citizenship, Refugees, Border Security, International Law. Subcommittee consideration forwarded by the subcommittee to the full committee. And then in November 30th, it says it was placed on the union calendar number 396, right? But if you remember, in 2010, I believe that's the year the Democrats lost control of Congress. So I believe that's probably what stalled this thing from going any further, because it didn't go any further. Didn't go any further than this. But the whole point is, for a man, is interesting. I wonder what Obama would have done with this, particularly being that he was anti-reparations for our people. What would he have done with this thing? That would have been interesting to see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would like to speak on that real quick. I think that the whole idea behind them setting it up that way is really, it kind of comes into today's times too. They lost their supermajority. I thought they was trying to rush that through. Obama, being a party line politician, would have done whatever the party wanted him to do at that time. So they, without a congressional focus, they lost their supermajority, because oftentimes, and what we've been trying to do is get people to understand the importance of the legislative branch of government, and why we need to be over-focused on a congressional initiative and a congressional political focus, right? So they lost that. So then now they wouldn't have got it done. But since this bill, in its design, it's not really designed to bring about a reparations program. It's not specific in who should get it. It's not specific in how it will be funded, and it doesn't specify what this commission is required to bring and present in their proposals to Congress. And it has too much crossover. So they have an executive. The president doesn't even need to be involved at all.
You're talking about HR 40 now.
Yeah, I'm talking about HR 40. Yeah, I'm talking about HR 40 now. And even with the Japanese thing, right? Even in both cases, because when we was going through the Japanese thing, we saw a lot of high pay going on in that as well, right? But that's to a way smaller group. We're talking about, and I think that was like the test. They was trying to test that to see if they could get it off, but they lost the congressional support, like you said. So now they're reamping and trying to bleed in some of that stuff that they did with that into this new HR 40 thing, right? And so I want if you're done, I would like Josh has some interesting points about how we got here with HR 40 anyway.
Yeah, man. So let me just share this here. Let me share this, because I think a lot of people don't understand how we got to the current version of HR 40. Very few people have actually read the document. We went through the document on a past show, and we read, and we probably should just go over it again, because maybe we have other people who didn't see that last show. We should probably hit certain pieces and maybe pull it up. But I'm gonna just go to this. Which one is it? This one right here. All right, this is from a press release that happened in, let's see, 2017. 2017. This is when Congressman John Conyers introduced a new HR 40 bill. See that? See, we talked about how it was one bill before, and that bill, of course, was lackluster. But now this new bill, as Naheem already talked about and how we talked about in the last show, it added some new interesting elements, and I say interesting, not with any type of, good spirits. I'm saying interesting because I'm interested in knowing more how they thought that they had the right to do this kind of stuff. So let me just go down to, I'm not going to read all of this. Basically, it's just saying, this group, we've been pushing for this HR 40 bill, and we seen it was missing some things as far as including us as being in front of it. So we needed to rewrite it to write ourselves as the chief influencers in this bill, and maybe the chief beneficiaries. So let's see. And I'm gonna bring up a couple things. But here's what I want you to understand. It's not just NCOBRA, it's collaboration between another group called NARC, National African American Reparations Commission. It says, they had a meeting at the June 12th inaugural meeting of NARC, and the representative of NCOBRA made a compelling argument that HR 40, as it was then written, had lost its relevance, as much of what it was to find had already been settled, both domestically and internationally. In particular, whether or not there was ongoing injury of current blacks in American from the crimes of enslavement and segregation, apartheid. Okay, NARC convened and chaired, blah blah blah, and assigned its team of commissioners to produce a revised version to submit to Congressman Conyers. So there it goes right there. So when we're trying to figure out, well, man, why does HR 40 have all this wild language up in there? What's going on? They assigned a team of its commissioners to produce a revised version to submit to Congress, to Congressman Conyers. They talk about what team of people was in the bill writing it up. The team was led by blah, 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 blah. This person and this person and this person, right? And it says, Congressman Conyers approved NARC's revised bill in nearly its entirety. And it says the final version with an additional input from other NARC commissioners and Movement for Black Lives. See, this is another one. Movement for Black Lives Coalition was completed just days before its introduction. Now, I'm not going to go in too hard, but let me just go. Oh man, I'm sharing the screen. My bad. Let me just go here to. Oh, you can't see this share. Let me stop this share and go to. Let me just share my screen in general. So, all right. So let's just go to Movement for Black Lives. All right. Let's just go here. Oh, you know what? I meant to do, let's see. Hold on. So this is their website. I'm not trying to promote them at all, obviously. Let me refine that. Reparations. Oh, interesting. See, then you can read into their reparations platform. And I don't know a whole lot about this group. I don't know if we talked about them before in this show. I know us within the Power team has talked about these individuals. Not these individuals, but this particular group, and how we saw some problematic things with their platform. But it's interesting, you talk about reparations for the systemic denial of access to high quality educational opportunities in the form of free access for all Black people, including undocumented and currently and formerly incarcerated people. Now, I don't understand. I ain't gonna get into that. We're not doing that right now. But y'all see how that can be kind of a problematic theme. Reparations for the continued divestment from discrimination toward the exploitation of our communities in the form of guaranteed minimum livable income for all Black people with clearly articulated corporate regulations. Reparations for the wealth extracted for our communities, environmental racism, slavery, food, apartheid, blah, 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 blah. And then we go down to legislation at the federal and state level that requires U.S. to acknowledge the lasting impacts of slavery, establish and execute a plan to address those impacts. This includes immediate passage of HR 40, the commission to study reparations proposal. So, this is, I think, it's kind of like, all right, we'll rock with y'all. We'll add your little HR 40 to our platform. And maybe there's something to where we can get a side benefit. Because, man, let me pull it. I had it here. Let me stop my share real quick. I need to.
What's that website you was on?
This is the Movement for Black Lives website.
Now, all these websites are good for researching purposes. It ain't about promoting a website. People need to know where to go research this stuff themselves. You know what I'm saying? Let them know where this stuff comes from. Let them see.
M4bl.org. Let me. What I wanted to do also So we saw that was problematic. I wanted to bring up one more thing here. Hold on a second.
While you're bringing that up, I
Yeah.
watched an interview with the Roosevelt Institute, and Dr. Sandy Darity was on there, and I believe Dorian Warren, who was a representative of that organization. I mean, from a political standpoint, I liked the things that he was talking about, but what he was saying in that interview doesn't line up with what you were just reading from that website. Those two things have variance.
Yes.
I believe he represented that organization.
Yeah, he promoted their website on the at the end of that video. All right, I got it here. Let me just do this. All right, I wanted to bring this up. I think I talked about this on the show last night. This was the show. By the way, the 13%. We did a show with Cynthia McDonald and Arthur Ward on the 13%. Shout out to them, man. They do some excellent work. They're great, man. And we vibe so strong. So go check them out. But this right here, this is California Bill AB 3121, Assembly Bill 3121. And it's a task force to study and develop reparations proposal for African Americans. It's, what you guys have been seeing is reparations being thrown around like a pair of dirty socks, in conversation, just real loosely and carelessly. And also it's been thrown around loosely and carelessly, so it appeared, as some type of local thing, and as far as a city or municipality can institute reparations, and on the state level. So when we see this, and this, we put in this call out. When you see this and you hear about this, don't get all excited and start talking, oh, they're gonna do reparations. We gotta understand. We said this several times, but let's say it again. Reparations, at a minimum, at a baseline, should be about closing the racial wealth gap, right? That cannot be done by any state. That cannot be done by any city. Why? Because only the federal government has the power to issue its own currency. So only the federal government can spend money without having to tax and borrow it first, because they have the U.S. Treasury and they can use the Federal Reserve to issue the currency, or to just credit the banks to make so the U.S. Treasury can make direct payments to individuals. It doesn't, just like when you got your stimulus check from the coronavirus stimulus or whatever, the CARES Act and all this kind of stuff, that's direct payments to individuals. See, there's no middleman. There's no group that is setting itself up to be like the issuer of the money, or it's going to distribute it. It's going to distribute the money. We don't need no middleman, So again, that's another part of that HR 40 that we need to make language into, to make sure that does not happen. Because when we read into the language, and I believe we need to get into it, it leaves an opening for something like that. I'm not saying that that's what somebody's trying to do, but it leaves it open for that. And
well,
so,
you know what's interesting?
Go ahead,
Josh.
Mm-hmm.
If they're using the Japanese American approach as the model,
mm-hmm.
They had two bills. They had one bill, the one that I showed,
Mm-hmm.
that establishes the commission to do the same thing that they're talking about trying to do with the commission for HR 40.
Mm-hmm.
Then they had the Civil Liberties Act, which actually was the bill to allocate the payments and whatever else that was going on that came in 1988 or whenever it was. So there were two different acts, and those payments were, I think, direct to those families. I don't think there was any middleman establishing that second bill that actually directed those payments. So, I mean, it's just a thought. It's just something I was thinking about as you were speaking. I don't know if HR 40. I don't know if HR 40 is supposed to set up middlemen and all of that kind of stuff. I don't know if that's what they're trying to do. I think, though, that if a second bill is coming that would actually deal with the payments the way they did it with the Japanese American, I know that that's something that we need to really be mindful of in that instance, because that's where then the money would start coming into play for the for the citizens and for the families. And so at that point, you definitely wouldn't want any middlemen or what have you.
No doubt. No doubt. Let me go back to this this California AB 31. Where is it? Here we go. So in this bill, you see how you have language that's in the red. This language is struck out because this is the original language that was in the bill before people who knew better said, hold up. We've seen that HR 40. We've seen how they trying to duplicate that, using that as a model all around the country with language that does not contain specifics for ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery. So it says, this is one example. This bill would establish a task force to study and develop reparations proposals for African Americans. No Americans who are descendants of persons enslaved in the U.S. Okay. Then it says this added language is included. It says the bill would state that any state level reparations authorized under these provisions are not to be considered a replacement for any reparations enacted on the federal level. The bill would repeal these provisions on July 1st, 2023. Y'all have to understand how important that is. That's important because what the state and the local reparations can do is, people, they can piecemeal it and they can get it to where that harms the national claim, where they can like, well, okay, you already got reparations. What you want? And it also can quell the national demand, So we have to, now this is fine as it is here. So it's fine as it is here, but we do not want this to be duplicated without this language right here, because we need the demand, we need the just the opportunity for the federal reparations to not be replaced by the state and local reparations. So shout out to ADOS California who got this adjusted here. And I'm not going to go.
I would like to add one thing to that. So, and when I'm going to pull some stuff up in a minute, but one thing that I'm concerned with that was kind of the reasoning behind one of the major changes in the old bill, the old HR 40 to the new HR 40, was the extra commissioners on the commission, right? So it started out at 7 and it improved to 13, right? And the 13, they say they wanted it to be people who had extensive history and reparations advocacy or something like that, right? That, to me, we know what that is, but I want to explain what that is not meaning and what that is not. So just because you have an extensive amount of but experience or participation in reparations advocacy, that doesn't make you a subject matter expert on development of a reparations program. So now we could have people, because of longevity and being vocal about an issue, actually crafting the design of the proposals to produce the ADOS plan for reparations, which it might not even be an ADOS plan. It could just be anything put together due to the lack of expertise the people on the commission could have. So what it should be designed calling for is everyone on the commission should be a subject matter expert in this space, right? If you're not a subject matter expert, you shouldn't even be on the commission at all. So on top of the bad appointments and having the president shouldn't even be involved and the vice president shouldn't even be involved in appointing people on the commission. And I'm going to say why. Because the president can do an executive commission. If the president wants to do a commission, they can do an executive commission to study reparations. They don't have to mix commissions, right? He doesn't have to be, if this is to be addressing Congress and to get Congress to do something, it should be solely targeting Congress. It don't have nothing to do with the president and the vice president, right? So what we have to understand is that the commission should be commissioned with subject matter experts, and it should be a complete congressional thing. It should have a complete congressional authority. So I just wanted to throw that part in there about that. So within all of the people that are coming from the states and coming from the cities, they should understand that that is what needs to be called for. A commission of subject matter experts who can be vetted to the degree we know their level of expertise in this field, so we can know how they can benefit us. Because let me tell you something, a reparations, the proposals can be very lousy proposals. And what we will get is the very lousy results. So we have to understand that. So I'm gonna go ahead and swing it back to you, man.
All right, this is what I want to do. I want to camel back off of what my brother Logic was just breaking down by going to NCOBRA's website, right? And I want to read something because I think that this is important. I don't know how many of you caught the opening of what I was breaking down in the beginning, but there was, before I get into this, there was, after the movie Black Panther came out, there was a story that was reported where Michael B. Jordan, somebody walked up to him and did the Wakanda thing. You know, I guess he got tired of it. He said, dude, this is not Wakanda, man. I'm not from Wakanda. Like, basically, this is real life. This is real life. Stop with the movie fairy tale stuff. And I say that to say that
it's an excellent analogy, man.
Yeah, because and I'm gonna show y'all what I mean by that exactly. Maxine Waters, I believe, was it John Lewis's funeral? I think it was that she threw up the Wakanda sign. I had all of that stuff pulled up. Oh no, it was Bishop Charles. I'm sorry, this was Aretha Franklin's funeral. Excuse me. She threw up the Wakanda. I was going to show all of that. There's another video with her. I think John Thompson is his name. It's just a bunch of them, and they sitting around. That's why y'all always hear me reference that Wakanda bounce, because these people are trying to take our minds somewhere outside of the reality of the seriousness of this situation. And I was listening to a video the other day. It wasn't Queen Mother Moore. It was another sister that went under the name Queen Mother. It could have been her. I'm not certain, but this seemed like a fairly newer video. And she referenced the Republic of New Africa. I'm like, what is this? So, you know, you look up the Republic of New Africa. It was a Black nationalist organization that was founded in 1968. And it basically wanted Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, Louisiana, and I think Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina as its territory. This is fantastical thinking that and then they tried to influence one city to secede from the United States. So when you read the history, I'm like, this is absolutely crazy. So I want to bring you to the reparations piece from from NCOBRA, from their website, because I think this gives us more of an understanding of where this group is trying to take this thing, and our claim, our belief that this is not, meaning HR 40, something serious for them, but that this is simply a money grab. So let me pull this up and share my screen. Okay, NCOBRA, this is their website. All right, it says, what is reparations? Reparations is a process of repairing, healing, and restoring a people injured because of their group identity and in violation of their fundamental human rights by governments, corporations, institutions, and families. Those groups that have been injured have the right to obtain from the government, corporation, institution, or family responsible for the injuries that which they need to repair and heal themselves. In addition to being a demand for justice, it is a principle of international human rights law. That language kind of struck me when we're dealing with specificity. It was like, okay, well, let me finish reading. As a remedy, it is similar to the remedy for damages in domestic law that holds a person responsible for injury suffered by another when the infliction of the injury violates domestic law. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. The international thing, you bring it back with the domestic law piece, cool. Examples of groups that have obtained reparations include Jewish victims of the Nazi Holocaust, Japanese Americans interned at concentration camps in the United States during World War II, Alaska Natives for land, labor, and resources taken, victims of the massacre in Rosewood, Florida, and their descendants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this is the area that I really want to get to, because I think that I'm going to read both of these. So just bear with me. They're two not long paragraphs, but I want y'all to understand that we can't let these people take us into some fantasy land with this thing. And we have to push for ADOS reparations and ADOS reparations only. When we get our reparations, then we can help everybody else. I would, to be honest with you. But let me continue reading. What form should reparations take? Reparations can be in as many forms as necessary to be equitably, fairly address the many forms of injury caused by chattel slavery and its continuing vestiges. The material forms of reparations include cash payments, land, economic development, and repatriation resources, particularly to those who are descendants of enslaved Africans. So I looked at that as problematic language.
They said particularly, so that's not specifically or only.
Yeah, so repatriation resources. So this to me ties into the new Africa model. Again, this is me just giving my theory about what I'm reading in conjunction with some of what these members are saying. It says other forms of reparations for Black people of African descent include funds for scholarship and community development, creation of multimedia depictions of the history of Black people of African descent and textbooks for educational institutions that tell the story from the African descendants' perspective. So wait a minute, that sounds like Ice Cube's contract for Black America, almost identical, word for word. So when he says that he spoke and dealt with professionals in the field to help revise his contract, to me, I start to see some similarities in the text and where he's getting this from. Again, it's something that will never get off the ground. Let me see.
Who should receive reparations?
Okay, this is turn of order. Okay, all right, this right here. Let me see. The return of artifacts and art to appropriate people or institutions. Okay, like I don't understand this line right here. And we have to frame this for those of you who are watching so that you could understand that this is not something that's serious. This is a Black Panther movie. This is Wakanda. They're talking about museums and returning artifacts to people and institutions. Like, what artifacts are you talking about and returning them where? And why should America be leading any such? Anyway, let me finish. Exoneration of political prisoners. I don't know if that should be a part of a reparations package. I don't know. That's something that I would need to discuss, but it just seems like superfluous add-ons to what they hope and wish. Sort of
like they're talking about people like Assata Shakur, what's the brother, Mumia Abu Jamal, people like that.
Man, Barack Obama could have did that.
Jamil Al-Amin, right?
Yeah, Barack Obama should have did that. The first Black president, right? Okay, and the elimination of laws and practices that maintain dual systems in the major areas of life, including the punishment system, health, education, yada, yada, yada. The forms of reparations received should improve the lives of African descendants in the United States for future generations to come. You see, this is the type of language that we find in HR 40. This is problematic. This is not being specific, family. There's no specificity here. When you say improve the lives of African descendants in the United States, what does that mean exactly? Because you could have had a family that came over in the 70s or the 80s, and they would technically be considered African descendants in the United States of America. This thing is not serious. And I just want to read this part before I close it and swing it to my brothers. Who should receive reparations? Within the broadest definition, all Black people of African descent in the United States should receive reparations in the form of changes in or elimination of laws and practices that allow them to be treated differently and less well than white people. For example, ending racial profiling and discrimination in the provision of healthcare, providing scholarship and community development funds for Black people of African descent, and supporting processes of self-determination will not only benefit descendants of enslaved Africans, but all African descendant peoples in the United States who, because of their color, are victims of the vestiges of slavery. This is similar to the Rosewood, Florida reparations package, where some forms of reparations were provided only to persons who descend from those who were injured, died, and lost their homes, and other forms were made available to all Black people of African descent in Florida. This was a prime example of cognitive dissonance to me. What do you mean? You can't say it should go to all descendants of African people, and then in the next sentence say this is similar to Rosewood's Florida reparations package, where some forms of reparations were provided only to persons who descend from those who were injured, died, and lost their homes, etc., etc. This doesn't make any sense to me. These are two conflicting statements, and when you have people like this who would sit on a reparations panel, and our brother Logic broke this down in the last show, and we'll get into some of that again, only for the purpose to having a commission run on for however many years they wanted that to run on for, not just the commissions, then you're going to have jobs that's going to be set up by subcommittees, et cetera, et cetera. This is craziness. HR 40 must be edited, and I'm going to read some of those edits in a few, or it must be scrapped. Or we, the people, us, America's descendants of slavery, must draft up our own bill and our own proposal.
Yes. So, you know, getting down to the nitty gritty of this problematic pieces, I want people to understand this, right? So a lot of people think that NCOBRA as an organization and its counterpart NARC, right? Its ally NARC. I don't want us to make the mistake of thinking that these people are weak, right? Because they don't have a large constituency, right? These people are very entrenched, dug in deep, and when in many ways have a lot of ties to things like they are doing things and have their hands in a lot of places and in a lot of pots. So we can't overlook. I'm a tactician to the core, and I don't want to overlook anything that can get in the way of a pure reparations program coming into manifest. And what you see with what they're doing, right, and why they have an executive connection with the piecemeal reparations. You see their hand in too many things to think that they don't mean serious business, and they don't oppose a serious threat to the outcome of this thing. We can't be foolish in that regard, right? So we have to understand what we're dealing with. These people are dug in deep, well entrenched, and have their hands all over the country, right? They're in Atlanta, they're in Chicago, they're all over, right? So what we have to do is understand that what we have is a constituency, and we have to stay on them, and we have to be on them and their legislation and eat it up like termites. You understand? So we have to be exposing why the legislation isn't good. And it's not be good. It's not that it's not good because NCOBRA did it. It's not good because it doesn't bring about pure reparations. What it does is create a opportunity to jeopardize the integrity of the commission. So if you already have in NCOBRA in the HR 40 piece, they already had that everything done in business in the name of the commission is going to be paid for by the government. What am I talking about? I'm talking about room and board, travel, lodging. I'm talking about per diems, right? So basically, they're going to get like a government travel card or whatever, and as long as they're doing work on the commission, which could be 24 hours a day, they're going to get their gas paid for travel. They're going to be able to lodge in hotels, right, under the government rate. They're going to be able to eat a certain amount of food depending on where they're at. They get a certain allowance to eat. They're already getting that paid for. So if that's happening, right, that's in the bill. We broke the bill down. Go read it yourself, right? We broke that down already. So if you already are getting paid expenses for doing the work, why do we need GS 18 level pay, which is upward to $200,000 per individual, per commissioner, as long as the commission is alive, right? Not only that, their subcommittee appointees get the same amount of pay as long as they're in play, right? So not only that, the commission itself is demanding a $12 million expenditure to fund the commission. Not only that, Sheila Jackson Lee just expressed her desire to request more funds for the program. So what are the funds for? What could the funds be for? And that's when we have to really have some serious understanding of who's involved in this thing, and they need to be answering the hard questions of why is this language in here? Why is this language?
And you know what I feel like? I'm sorry, bro. Go ahead.
No. Come on in, bro.
I was going to say what I feel is they don't really believe reparations will ever happen. And so what they're trying to do is set up a bunch of bills like this. They got HR 40, then they'll do some ones at the state level, then they'll do some ones in the local level with certain cities so that they can try to extract as much money out of different places as possible and contracts and do whatever kind of business they can, set themselves up, whatever companies they're in league with. Because on the one of those sheets that Josh pulled up earlier, you have a bunch of companies that signed on to this new thing where they're pushing to try to fast track, the passage of HR 40. And there's a bunch of companies, and I'm like, these are probably companies they're going to be doing business with, you know what I'm saying, or looking to do business with. So I'm assuming that they're trying to fast track this thing, and they probably really don't believe reparations will ever happen. So this is the best they can do, is get as much money out of this thing as possible.
So yeah, and another thing, right? If you understand that a lot of the heads and the leaders of the thing are elders and they're upward in age, so they what it looks like is a retirement fund building for their sunset years, right? And so what I want to hit on, right? And I'm not going to leave this point alone because it has to be understood that way. And I think it's a real mistake tactically. And I'd rather overestimate these people's ability to get things done working as insiders than to underestimate their ability, and then they snuff out the light of reparations before we can get to them, right? So without first and foremost, getting this thing moved like they've gotten it moved just don't happen if you're a nobody. Being in all these different places at the same time and having your hands in all these different pots at the same time don't happen if you're a nobody. Saying that they're a nobody to me is quite foolish. And I don't take my enemies foolish. And I'm not saying that them are as individuals are enemies, but anything that interrupts the pursuit of the plight of a reparations program for the Native Black Americans and the descendants of the people who would qualify for such a program and who ultimately deserve it is very important to me. So I don't care if they are a large group with members all across the globe, or if it would only be 13 of them who have connections that are deep and can influence things, because you don't get to a point where you can shape legislation and be a nobody. You don't get a point where you can move and exist for decades and then be all over the country trying to influence legislation, no matter how low salience your involvement is. Just because you're not seen and not known don't mean that you don't have influence. So influence can be deadly if you ignore it. And we can't allow ourselves to go to sleep at the wheel thinking that there's some nobodies, because I'm not overestimating them. I'm just reporting on the data. I'm just reporting on the evidence that has manifested itself. And if you do the homework on them, you will see everywhere they've been and what they've done. And then once you've analyzed that, you can make an intelligent decision to say these people and whoever they may be, wherever they are doing some very impactful things that could destroy or interrupt a pure reparations program and initiative. So we cannot be naive or foolish to be thinking that, you know, these are just some nobodies and then ignore them. That you don't ignore people like that.
Facts.
Yeah, I saw somebody said the current bill has no deadline. And it's interesting because I think, you know, we were talking about it earlier, Logic and Josh, where we was talking about the one for the Japanese Americans. They had a deadline. They had a deadline. This wasn't no on.
Yeah. What was the deadline in theirs? Was like 12 months?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 12 months in that one we were talking about. Yeah, let me just share this. I just want to show y'all the list, the supporters list, because, you know, all right, so this right here is a release that just came out last week from them. And, you know, why we can't wait for reparations now. That's cool. Like, that's a good message. You know, this is a letter to Pelosi and all of that. Like, if you just see this meme right here, why reparations now? Why we can't? Hey, I'm with that. You know, but it seems like it's an effort to just push this thing through. It's like, you know, to be the power dudes and everybody else, they all on Twitter, they on to the jig. So just hurry up and just push this thing through. And these are all the organizations that co-signed. Well, I don't say they co-signed the letter, but, you know, just like Diddy's letter that had all these names on it, this doesn't have names of individuals. This has names of corporations. This has names of all different type of civic groups and look, ACLU. I don't know, a bunch of Jewish coalitions.
You see, it makes sense, like right? That. Think about it. If I can get as much money out of HR 40 as possible, and I link up with all of these companies to have my back and getting this thing pushed, it's like, okay, so I'm gonna get $20 million out of HR 40, and I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna do business with I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna do business with whatever company, National Action Network. We're gonna do some business with the Coca-Cola company, whoever else that we can get on board to support us, and it makes sense for them to support because they're gonna make money out of it too.
National Conference for Black Lawyers.
You know, I want to say this too. I think that is just it shows that I was zoning earlier before I get to that, and I thought about
Chocolate Factory,
Barack Obama, right, and why HR 40 got no steam under Barack Obama's presidency.
It lost steam.
Yeah, it lost steam, right, and then you get the 2016 election. So this is where we start to see this movement, probably because they thought that Hillary Clinton was going to be the president. And they probably figured that, well, maybe we could press Hillary Clinton on HR 40. So let's start trying to kick this thing back up. But of course, she doesn't become the president. So that never happened. I mean, this was just something that I was thinking about. And for people to try to ram this through in an attempt to take advantage of the calls for social justice, particularly the call for reparations, to me, it shows that it is disingenuous. You're not calling for experts, like my brother Logic was saying, on the field. You're not calling for economists. Where's the people that deal with the socio-economic, aspect of what this would entail in these groups? You don't have that. You have people talking about New Africa and things of that nature, and Swahili words, Ma'afa. Like this, I mean, I don't understand why that needs to be a part of this. And what we're trying to do is get the family to understand is that this is a money grab for these people. This is all they care about, is getting to this money. So we have to make sure that we get very, very loud over these next couple of months, because they may try to force this thing through. I wouldn't be surprised that under a Biden presidency that you see this thing this bill get passed in the House in its current version. And we have to become so loud over these next couple of months that it forces them to accept the edits that was done by Dr. Sandy Darity and Kirsten Mullins, or have the bill killed in the House and replace it with something new. I want to stress that tonight. And I'm going to read those edits. Go ahead, Brother Logic.
Let me say this, right? So when we talking about the co-sponsors coming on and everything like that, I know we've highlighted that, it wasn't because of the Ta-Nehisi Coates essay, and it really wasn't because of anything other than, it's a lot of attention to the subject of reparations that has been, set to fire. And but what I'm looking at now is like, when I reanalyze if you look at the powers of the commission, if you look at the commission powers of the bill, it talks about subcommittees, right? And being able to, the sub-commissioners having the same amount of power and authority as the actual commission, the real commissioners, and getting the same amount of pay for as long as they're in existence. So I said, all they did was sweeten the pot up for their friends and colleagues. They said, you know what? We're going to add 6 more commissioners on there. And then what we're going to do is also throw in a whole subcommittee. They never said how many subcommittee members they could have. Never even specified them. You can have 126 subcommittee members. They never specified a limit to that. But
and look, real quick, Sheila Jackson Lee just said they're going to make a proposal to raise the budget from the current $12 million. So we already can see what type of play that's going to be made.
Yeah, this is a business move, man. I suspect there are a lot of companies who are getting in line to do business with these people.
Real quick, right? On the actual subcommittee side, and its correlation to why people are all of a sudden so enthusiastic about supporting the bill. If you knew you could get some GS 18 level pay, and let me explain GS level 18, because somebody was on there who obviously knows about this type of federal pay schedule. So the top of the schedule is GS 15, but GS 18 is another term or name for what they call SES pay, special executive salary, right? So when special executive work salary, right? So that is in the same code but they call it GS 18 so they can, kind of be slick with it and kind of be vague. But if you know what you're looking at, if you go do research on what GS 18 level pay is, it'll tell you the numbers, and from the low end to the high end and all of that. It's a real thing, folks.
Yeah, let me say that we're ending the stream on Facebook. Come on over to YouTube and watch the rest of it. Watch the rest of this important live stream, because this is our fight. We are reparationists, and we got to make sure that these people, whom are the gatekeepers, no longer stand in our way. But like the OG put in the chat, shout out to Otis, said they have proximity to the levers of power.
That's right.
And we are the people. And the power of the people is strong as well. And sometimes the only thing you got to do is yell loud enough, which is what we watch the ADOS movement do over the past, particularly the past year. And so we have to put our focus on HR 40 because this is a one-shot deal, basically. We get it wrong here, who knows what's going to happen? They may like, well, you know, this thing failed. We don't want to bring it back up. No, we can't let these people move our justice claim into some fantastical space. We have to fight for it. This is what being a reparationist is about. It is about fighting for our justice. It has always been since the time of the abolitionists, since the time of the freedmen who went and joined the Union Army, since all of the freedom fighters you heard us speaking about on this particular platform. This is the place of reparationists, and this is our freedom fight right here. We need all soldiers and all hands on deck.
Fact.
That's right. That's right, man. Yes, indeed.
Are you gonna pull the edits up, bro?
Yeah, I am. Just give me 1 second. Brother Ali or Josh or any one of y'all, just go in real quick. I'm trying to end the
All right.
Facebook thing. This thing giving me problems right now.
Let me see. What do we have here?
Yeah, so understand, right? The problem that we are speaking to tonight is we're doing this for a reason. We're bringing HR 40 back up for a reason. We have to stay focused. I think oftentimes in this space we have short attention spans, right? And we just want to move. No, we want to just move to whatever catches our attention. But sometimes, when you're not sometimes, but all the time, when you're doing this reparationist work, you have to be locked in. We got to get locked in. If you want to do real politics, right? I always say in every show, government is the game and politics is how it's played. If you want to actually do politics, you have to stay focused. You have to stay. If we understand that HR 40 is a problematic, we have to be, as a constituency, stay on that thing. Keep the message loud. Stay on the message. We can't say, you know what, we hit that. Let's leave it alone now. Let's go on to something else. That's not political work. You fight that political fight until that fight is won. So if it's a threat, have we eliminated the threat of HR 40? So why wouldn't we continue to get after that thing? We have to stay on that thing until we get it done. So we will mention it again and again and again and again, as many times as we have to. We will dissect it and re-dissect it until we get it done. And that's that's the type of political focus you have to have. You can't just be trying to be like this isn't a news show. This is a reparationist program. And reparation is talking about what we're doing every day in real life. So we're not talking about let's find something hot. Nah, we got to get this 40 thing done, or it's going to burn up the reparations program.
Yeah, and I wanted to say this too. The reason why I brought up that page with NCOBRA and that letter that they submitted to Pelosi and all of them saying why we must do reparations now, why I can't wait, and I show all those people at the bottom, is because I wanted to show you that it's going to take making connections. It's going to take building relationships. You can't underestimate a group that's been around since what, 1980 something or 1990. We can talk about how obscure they are, but what they obviously, one thing that they were able to do was make some relationships. They made relationships. I don't know the extent that those relationships go. We really need to look at that. We need answers on some of that too, because just looking at some of the names, you can see how sometimes some of that stuff can be problematic. But in terms of moving policy and getting it to where you have enough strength to push politicians to draft legislation and change legislation to your liking, that's going to take some relationships, and we're going to have to do what we need to do to make relationships, to to build relationships. Not only that, but to inflict pressure also. So, what we can do, because maybe we don't have the inside track. But guess what? It's 6 degrees of separation. Some of us may actually have a way to have some type of inside track to influence in this. Guess what? If we started flooding, our representatives with calls, if we started flooding our contact list to say, hey, who do you know that knows somebody that might know somebody that, that can influence somebody that can get this voice heard. And if the masses of us, see, the few people that may be in the room with those folks, it cannot be, we can overcome them with the masses flooded of people that just overtake them. See, what they don't have is that they don't have like a huge base of people that is pushing. They don't have a huge base of people that can affect, on the ground, that can affect on the basic taxpayer level or on the basic citizen level, that can just mess up the vote, that can mess up some of these corporations' money. So we just have to weaponize that. We got to mobilize that and weaponize that.
Let me read something. We talked about Obama earlier, right? And what if he would have got it done? So there's an interesting quote from Obama in regards to this reparation thing, right? So from Obama, right? I'm not going to pull it up. I'm just going to read it. Obama. Well, I thought I was, but I'm not so optimistic as to think that you would ever be able to garner majority of an American Congress that would make those kind of investments above and beyond the kind of investments that could be made in a progressive program for lifting up all people. See the change, right? Look at what they're doing. Look at what's going on. So to reinstate it, I have much more confidence in my ability, or any president or any leader's ability, to mobilize an American people around a multi-year, multi-billion-dollar investment to help every child in poverty in this country than I am in being able to mobilize the country around providing a benefit specific to African Americans as a consequence of slavery and Jim Crow. Now we can debate the justness of that, but I feel pretty confident in the assessment politically. And I think that part of my optimism comes from the belief that we as a people could actually, regardless of all the disadvantage of the past, regardless of all the fact that a lot of other folks got a head start in the race, if we were able to make race fair right now, and yada yada, he runs on. But let me say something about this particular thing with Obama. First of all, he's talking about all this we, and we know if it's already been exposed, he's not no we.
He's they.
He's a they, right? But he's doing what Kamala's also doing, is trying to present himself as a we, while he tells us he can't do nothing for us. So we have to understand that, and this is reflecting itself in many ways. So now what he also said here was very important, and I'm gonna read that part again. He said, I'm not so optimistic as to think that you would ever be able to garner a majority of an American Congress. What have we been saying on BTP? Congressional focus. You understand? Congress is an invoice that must be filed with the United States Congress. And if we have 5 seats of the House of Representatives up for re-election this year, right? That means they are pressure. What is it?
All of them are. All the seats.
All the seats.
all of the House.
All of the House seats. And I think,
all of the House seats.
33 out of the 100 Senate seats are up for re-election this year, right? So yeah, the pressure is on. And politics is about pressure, right? So we have to have a congressional focus. So now when we talk about Kamala Harris being named a VP, if that ticket wins, right? If that ticket wins, right? The Biden Harris ticket. What does
the worst ticket I done seen in my lifetime, by the way.
It's a crazy ticket. But if let's say I don't have confidence in that ticket. But if that ticket does win, right? Now if this is where we have to be focused on this HR 40 thing again and keep a congressional focus, right? If HR 40 passes through like it does now, in the hopes that they think that they're going to get their ticket passed, Look who the president of the Senate would be, Kamala Harris. She done already told you she ain't doing nothing specific for black folks. Crackhead Joe done already told you he don't care nothing about what happened, and he ain't paying. He'll be saying, "I'll be damned if I pay for some stuff that happened in slavery." And all.
I'll be damned.
You know what I'm saying? This is why this stuff is important. But if we had a Congress that was reparationist, that was a pro-reparation Congress, we could shape and form or charge the commission to come back with something that was solid enough to form into legislation that even if Biden and Harris wanted to go against it and veto it, we could override it with the Congress, right? You can fight adversarial president way more effectively in many more different ways if you had congressional power and Congress control than you can if you had the best president in the world, but you had an adversarial Congress. An adversarial Congress can stop you in so many ways and can hurt you in so many ways. And Congress is what actually shapes the climate policy-wise. Through policy, they shape the climate of the society. So we have to have a congressional focus, not only as voters, but as people who aspire to be statesmen. You have to understand, when our people came out of emancipation, you saw an influx in statesmen, right? Because what? We live in a democratic republic. The democracy is what it is directly tied to the representation. So if we don't get involved in the democracy, right, we won't get the proper representation. If we don't register people to vote, our percentage is going to fall while other groups' percentages rise. So we are going to become a democratically irrelevant people. And if you don't have an effective and a relevant democratic presence, you will not be represented in the republic. You have to understand that. So what the most democratic part of the government is Congress. You understand? Because that's where more votes go to anything, and it's more representation the way it's broken down districtly than any other part of the government, right? So if we want to get at this reparations thing, we're going to have to do some more democratic work. And I'm not talking about in the Democratic Party. I'm talking about in the society. We have to be democratic in the way we do things from the bottom to the top and understand its importance. We have to be focused on Congress. And if anybody want to come in and say something, you go ahead.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say, go ahead, Ali. Go ahead.
Now, I just pulled up the function of the president of the Senate in terms of the legislative process and how the vice president will be interacting with the Senate if it's Kamala Harris, and let's just say the Senate stays Republican dominated. Let's look at something real quick. Let's look at something real quick, right? It says here, vice presidents can't, right here, vice presidents cannot vote in the Senate except to break a tie, nor may they formally address the Senate except with the Senate's permission. Initially, vice presidents appointed senators to standing committees, regulated access to the galleries, and supervised the keeping of the Senate Journal, but these duties were later removed. So let's say Kamala Harris becomes the vice president, but the Senate stays majority Republican. This thing is telling you she can't do nothing with them. She won't have no sway over them.
Yeah, and she shouldn't even have nothing to do with it. Because they shouldn't be combining the branches like that. We have a separation of powers for a reason, right? For checks and balances. So when they collaborate them like that, it convolutes the mission and it paints a very muddy picture. So now you have if you start looking at things the right way and you start asking the right questions, you can start to understand what's really going on. So now, why would, usually Congress don't want the president in their business. So why would somebody want to bring that together like that? It doesn't make any sense. So understand, Congress should be, if it's going to be a congressional committee, it should not have any executive involvement. If the executive branch wants to do a reparations commission, they need to do it, and they need to do it, and they need to set it up, right? And if someone wants to bring it to the executive, because I don't even know, like, this legislation is calling for that involvement, which is quite strange, right? The legislation
That's what we need change. We need that. Just let it be Congress.
Yeah, it's not like the president saying he wants in on this thing. The president probably don't want nothing to do with it, right? But they're calling and wanting to be involved with it. But we got to understand this thing started in '89, and it is where it is now. And we've gone through all these different presidents, but there has been no time since '89 to present where there was even a president who you would even want to be appointing people. It don't even make any sense to have in there any way you slice it up. It's
vice president.
Or vice president. You want
the
Speaker of the House.
The reason I bring up a Republican Senate is because if the Senate stays Republican, I doubt that HR 40 is going anywhere anyway.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that maybe we can't underestimate the cunningness of the Republicans either, who understand that this is nothing. And if they say, you know what, we could pass this, and this will kind of cut the legs out of the real reparationists when they come. Mm-hmm. Well, we already gave y'all this, and we've already done reparations, and y'all was the head of it, and y'all created it, and if you ain't go to us, that's on you. So we gotta stop this thing. We gotta stop it, slow it down, and say either rewrite it. Naheem, you ready with the edits?
Oh yeah.
Because we gotta rewrite this thing, man, or they gotta send it back. Either you rewrite it or get rid of it.
But Josh, did you want to say something before I went in real quick?
Yeah, no, I want to say, when you say congressional focus, you know, it's a lot of, there was a few notable Democrats that were unseated, that lost in the primary. And, you know, those are like blue districts that are probably going to stay blue, most likely going to stay blue. Like Elliot Engel lost to, I think it was Jamal Bowman. And what was the sister that beat Lacey Clay out in, what was her name? Corey Bush, I believe her name was, who beat Lacey Clay out of Missouri. Yeah, like, you know, these.
Oh, what's her name?
Her Bush. It was Bush. Corey Bush, I think that was her name.
That's not the one I'm thinking of right now. Oh, her name escapes me. Go ahead, brother.
But yeah, all of these people now need to be. You can look at their background and kind of make a determination of where they may stand. You can see some of these associations and see how it can maybe problematic or less likely to become a reparationist or to push reparations. But we still need to put the pressure. Anybody else is coming through the pipe now, they have to be. We need to be on them just like we were on them last year. Doesn't matter. We need to be on this year. Where you at on reparations? You need to be fighting for reparations. You know, I mean, I saw something real interesting on Twitter today, and I'm not going to bring too much time to it, but I saw it was dealing with Ilhan Omar. And maybe we can get into this another time. It was real problematic. Did y'all see it? There's a leaked letter from somebody. She was on a call with Ilhan Omar not too long ago, and she was saying how Somalians were. African Americans were jealous of. Look, you can say all of that, but now we're discovering that you made some real problematic statements about our people and causing division. How are you gonna make that right? Now, Ilhan Omar, we need you to fix it. Part of your apology that you need to make us, you need to be championing reparations. If you don't do that, like, you're declaring yourself the enemy now. I don't care which side you're on. If you're a Democrat, you need to get up out of there. You need to get primaried and you need to get out of there. So you got to go. If you're not for reparations, you're gonna be causing all kind of problems and saying we jealous of Somalians. Come on, what kind of mess is that? And so we need all of these people up and down. You're gonna have to account reparations. Yes or no? No. Okay, you out of there. We need to get a reparations up in there.
And this is when it comes to the people that lives in her district. You understand? This is the job of a reparationist. If you live in her district, see, we can feel this way about her, but we can't vote her out of office. We need the people that live in her district to understand how problematic she is and how she is negatively impacting their district. And if all the reparationists in her district got together, they could make some serious pressure manifest for the representative, right? So we have to understand these people are the ones shaping the policy. You watching the presidential debates and watching what's going on in that, and these people are legislating your life away. So you can't turn a blind eye to what the power of the pen is doing when they in Congress. I just got to keep hitting that home.
Indeed, indeed. So I'm going to get into Dr. Sandy Daugherty's edits because these are important, very, very important. If this bill is to move forward, if we as a people, as America's descendants of slavery, are to get behind this bill, it has to have all of these edits that I'm about to read from Dr. Daugherty and Kirsten Mullins. And I just think these are some of the edits. The language about 1619 is a problem. There's just a whole bunch of problems with the language of this particular bill. So let's get into this. Let me blow this up so everybody can see this. So I want to give a shout out to Dr. Daugherty and Sister A. Kirsten Mullins for the book, From Here to Equality, Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century. If you have not gotten your hands on that book, please do so. I call it the Reparationist Quran. It's my personal name for it. So let me get into what I had typed up. If the current version of the bill under the title HR 40 is to go forward, then revision of HR 40 must include the following changes for a pure reparations program. 1, the commission must be charged with developing a proposal for redress that will eliminate the gulf in black and white wealth in the United States. And I want to pause there, because if you don't have economists, socio-economists, particularly on that or in that commission, I don't understand what the purpose is. What are you doing? What is your mission? What is your goal? What is the end game? And I think we touch on some of that tonight, and the question is rhetorical. Let me continue. While Black Americans constitute 13% of the nation's population, they possess less than 3% of the nation's wealth. A reparations plan must be designed to bring the Black share of wealth at least into alignment with the Black share of the population. If you were watching the 13% last night, the Be the Power team was on with Sister Cynthia and Brother Arthur Ward. Shout out to our ADOS Chicago family. And Brother Logic was going in on the numbers, and he's also touched on that on this show. Whereas the white wealth in the United States of America is exceeded by their population, whereas we make up 13-14% of the population, and we only have 3% of the nation's wealth. Okay, number 2, the commission must be directed to set as eligible recipients Black American descendants of United States slavery. Y'all just heard me reading from NCOBRA's website, New Republic of Africa. What else? Just the bill itself. The bill itself has problematic language. It continues. Eligible recipients must show that they have at least one ancestor who was enslaved in the United States, a lineage standard, and for at least 12 years prior to the enactment of a reparations plan or a study commission, whichever comes first. They self-identified as Black, Negro, or African American, the identity standard. We don't want people trying to wedge themselves into this claim. We don't need no Rachel Dolezals and other people that are European Americans, but past them or white, that pass themselves off as quote unquote black people trying to get their foot into our reparations claim. No, we're not going to do that. And the way that the current group has this bill constructed, and when we look at the background text of the group that helped rewrite the bill, we don't know if these types of provisions, like an identity standard, is going to be implemented. So these edits are vital. The next says, the relevant window for the Black American claim for reparations dates from 1776 to the present, not 1619 as the bill currently reads. Since the claim for redress must be made on the U.S. government, the beginning date for the claim must be associated with the founding of the republic, not the landing of enslaved persons at Jamestown, Virginia. This kills the diasporic element that they're trying to introduce into a claim that is supposed to be United States specific. Again, I reference you back to what I was just reading from NCOBRA's own website. It is, like I said, it's trying to make the United States centripetal in meting out reparations to all Africans in the diaspora. This is fantastical. The next says, the commission must be directed to complete its report, inclusive of a detailed prescription for legislation to enact the reparations program for Black Americans within 18 months of its impaneling. This closes any run-on that this commission may try to establish with any committees that it may commission, right? We don't need a 5-year program. This is why you've had expert economists like Dr. Darity and A. Kirsten Mullins write a book like From Here to Equality to show that a large majority of the research is already done. It shouldn't even take 18 months, to be honest with you. That's my personal assessment. They know better than I. The next says, commissioners should be selected exclusively by Congress. They must be experts in American history, constitutional law, economics, including stratification economics, political science, and sociology. And they must have expertise on the history of slavery and the Jim Crow regime, employment discrimination, wealth inequality, health disparities, unequal education opportunity, criminal justice and mass incarceration, media, political participation, and exclusion and housing inequity. So we think about books, some of the books that we have, Ira Katznelson's When Affirmative Action Was White, The Color of Law, A Forgotten History of How Our Government Segregated America by Richard Rothstein. Mercer Baradaran, I always think I'm saying her name wrong. Her book, The Color of Money, dealing with the issue of Black banks. Like, these are experts on the subject. These are experts. Okay. The next reads, there should be a paid professional staff. While the commissioner's reasonable expenses should be met, unlike the present version of the bill, neither they nor any organization in NCOBRA to which they belong should receive a salary, honorarium, or the equivalent for performing this vital national service. Because as Dr. Darity said in his interview with the Roosevelt Institute, this is a recipe for sabotage or for self-interest, right? The last edit says the establishment of a commission is an important step on the road to reparations. And we know this because of the Japanese commission, of which we got into some of tonight. An effective reparations plan will require an effective commission. In turn, that will require a conscientious and careful revision of H.R. 40. And then I put kill the bill and begin anew, because this is a part of an article that I'm working on to publish on my Medium account. So, bros, if you have anything that you want to touch on with what I was reading, with those edits, even with, because I've heard people say, forget the commission. We know that we need reparations. We don't really need a commission. You know, I've heard some of those things. So, what?
You know, the commission, I would assume if it's constructed of professionals, the way Dr. Darity laid it out, it could serve a good purpose in terms of when it comes down to entertaining reparations proposals. Because at the end of the day, that's what this commission is supposed to be doing, is entertaining reparations proposals. I'm assuming from different places, different organizations. But I think, you know, I think that it will serve a good purpose. You know what I mean? We saw it with the Japanese Americans. It served this purpose. But again, like we talked about early, they weren't all. Everybody wasn't for a commission. Some people wanted to just get to the payments. You know, let's just get to paying the people. We don't really need. We know what happened. Let's pay the people. You know, but I think the research is already done. Like you said, the research is already done. The history is there. It's well documented from Here to Equality and other books that you mentioned. Is well documented. I do think we need to get to the proposal aspect of it sooner than later. I think the proposals need to start being drafted like now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wanted to say. Yeah, I wanted to say. Well, I think the commission is good. I think the commission is good. I think, and we touched on it in the beginning. A lot of Japanese Americans. It was some of them, or a significant amount of them, who maybe didn't know all the history or didn't know all the details that went on during the internment camp. I would believe back in the 40s and 50s, and then back later on in the 70s and 80s, and when they were discussing this idea in detail, there was no Wikipedia, there was no YouTube, there was no Google search. So people really had to go and seek out the information in the books. It wasn't just readily available to the average person. So I think the commission did a good job of bringing, you know, a well researched case and making a lot of these things aware. So what I'm trying to say is the commission can serve the purpose of building public support. You know, it's not always what is said, because we can go and read. You can go right now and make a case of reparations, just going on a YouTube search. You can go on Wikipedia. You can search all of these atrocities. You can ask your family. It's not always what's said. Sometimes it's who is saying it. So when the federal government is coming out and saying all of the things that your grandmama told you, all of the things that you saw on PBS or something like that, all the things you've seen on Hidden Colors, or I don't care, where have you seen it? When the federal government is coming out and saying this with official report from a reparations commission established by Congress, that holds a lot of weight. That kills a lot of the naysayers. That's going to make this thing solidified and help build public support. So then when you come behind it with the bill, you will have way more people. I would just have to estimate. You have way more people in support. You will have way more people that say, okay, this is one of the most credible source that we can have, you know. And so hopefully, if we get the right individuals on it anyway, right? But just coming from the federal government, it means so much. So I would think that would build public support for whatever proposals that become the official reparations bill. That should be more likely to get support to be passed.
You muted, Logic.
I apologize. And again, like you said, what the importance of the commission is not so much the fact that we need one in the necessity of we don't have the research, we need them to do the research, anything like that. Understand what is similar to like the 9/11 commission, right? Or any other federal commission that reports, it becomes the official position of the government, right? So it's the government's report on something. So now that's why the commission is so important, and that it is so important that the right people are on it, and that the commission is tasked to do the right things. So the mission of the commission has to be what the focus is. We have to be focused. What are the commission designed to do? The proposals. Can you pull that comment back up? I saw a comment that was really was talking about how Darity wanted to task the commission. Can we bring that comment back up real quick? Because I think it's very important to understand that it's really like if you don't even if you don't get everything that you want, right? Because in politics, you hardly ever get everything that you want. So it says the commission should be tasked with crafting implementation of full spectrum generational pure reparations. That is now, if we can get that done, right? That is what's important. Now the right, you can take it down,
with the
bro.
right people, like you said, with the right people on it.
Yeah. So yeah, and if you could get the right people, but you can kind of make what they can do very limited in that space, so they can't just be running around the country doing whatever they want to do, right? So you have to be so if that is what they were designed to do, that's what their job would be. That's what they would have to report with. So we don't have just come up and let me when in 18 months tell me what you got. No, this is what y'all have to come back with. So when you task them out to do very specific things, you can get very specific results. So that's one, right? And so the commission report is part of the federal record and the government record. So it becomes very important, very, very important when you have a commission, right? Not that it's necessary, again, just to drive that back home, not that it's necessary for the commission to exist because we need a commission, but what the commission implies and what it does as it makes your position connected to the federal government's position. And that's the position that we want.
Indeed. Oh, Brother Josh, if you had anything to add, Brother Ali? You muted, bro.
Sorry, I wanted to show this real quick because this is the HR 42. Just wanted to show something real quick. This is the one that didn't really go anywhere, but no, not that. Hold on. That's the wrong one. Let me pull the right one.
If y'all haven't got from here to equality, you have to get it. If you can't get it, the copies are flying off of the shelves. If you can't get you a hard copy, get it on Kindle, get it on Amazon. That book for life.
Yeah.
So this is from HR 42. And I just wanted you to look at the establishment of their commission, what they were trying to do for this was the second commission to extend the work of the first commission. Look at how they was trying to compose it. The commission shall be composed of 9 members who shall be appointed not later than 60 days after the date of the enactment of this act. 3 members shall be appointed by the president, 3 by the Speaker of the House, representatives on the joint recommendation of the majority leader of the House of Representatives, minority leader of the House of Representatives, and 3 members shall be appointed by the President pro tempore of the Senate on the joint recommendation of majority and minority leaders of the Senate. So they were only trying to do 9. And how many are they trying to do with HR 40?
13. But what you said was something very specific. I don't know if everybody heard that. Everybody that had an appointment power was a part of Congress. You didn't have the president and the vice president. The vice president tempore is someone who serves in the Senate, who breaks the ties when the actual Senate president, who is the vice president, isn't able to do so.
Well, this thing said 3 by the president.
Where you? I didn't see that part. They said 3 by the president.
Yes, 3 shall be appointed by the president, and then 3 by the Speaker of the House on the joint recommendation of the majority minority leaders. Same thing with the Senate. So 6 would have come from Congress and 3 from the president.
So they just added that joint recommendation of the majority leader of the House of Representatives in there and the minority leader on top of the speaker. Okay.
this, I mean,
I wanted to
go ahead, brother.
Well, I wanted to get into something else real quick. Just dealing with, the fact that this reparations program, the Reparations Commission, it is something that should, we should have, like, let me share my screen because I want to just bring up the Kerner Commission because it's interesting. I don't think a lot of people knew about that. Let me just bring this up here if I can. It says, let me know when y'all can see the screen. Okay, all right, cool. It says, yeah, this is the Kerner Commission. For y'all who don't know about the Kerner Commission, this is what Lyndon Johnson. It says this is 1968. The 1968 Kerner Commission got it right, but nobody listened. And this was when Johnson he put a commission to study the riots that happened in '68 and trying to see how did things get this bad. And he was trying to say it was one thing, and it was interesting that the commission came out and said something else. So it's one thing also, like when we think about putting people to appointing them to the commission, I believe it is very important that we control who is going to be, or I don't want to say control, but we have some way of getting the right people in the commission. But even in the case that we don't, if these people are professional people and not just like, and I don't want to use a word that rhymes with rooms, right? But those people, as long as it's not those people, I believe that it's a possibility at least that some good can come out from it. Let me read this article real quick. I'll go down here. It says, ads is long. Johnson, the president had chosen the moderate commission members because he believed they would support his programs, seek evidence of outside agitation, and avoid assigning guilt to the very people who make or break national politicians, the white middle class. The report blindsided him. He had suggested that communist agitation fired up the riots, and to his dismay, the report disagreed, asserting that the riots were not caused by, nor were they the consequence of any organized plan or conspiracy. And the commission rejected another common allegation, the charge of that irresponsible journalists inflame ghetto neighborhoods. So, even like, and I want to say this too, even if, let's just say we get another 4 years of Trump, or let's say we get Biden, if we have a Congress and the commission for reparations comes back with something that is just a powerful product, right? It doesn't necessarily matter what the president or whatever anybody else says. We have a document that is on the record that is giving the message that we need to give to support reparations, a reparations bill in the future. And I think one of the mistakes that was made from, I ain't gonna say it was a mistake that was made, because this was an executive thing done by Johnson. And there's one edit that I would like to see on HR 40 is saying, look, when whatever results come from this commission, it needs to be, you can't just sweep it under the rug. I can read further in this document where it talks about the Kerner Commission, where Johnson actually just says, I don't like what I'm seeing, and support for the civil rights movement is going down for white folks. So let me just forget this. All right, I don't like that. Just take it out of my face. That's basically what Johnson said. But with this HR 40, we need this to tie into legislation that's going to be an actual reparations bill. This is not something that should be allowed to just be swept under a rug. If you're gonna study it, it needs to be a commitment to go and use the findings of the study for reparations bill.
Yeah, that's powerful. That was powerful. That was powerful. That was powerful, brother. Logic.
Yo.
I mean, we coming up on, well, we passed the 2-hour mark. I think we set out to do what we intended to tonight, and that is take another deep dive into HR 40, expose the hidden hands that's trying to move this very flawed piece of legislation so that it could become law. We've exposed how these players, these actors, if you will, wrote themselves into a bill so that they could basically get paid over the next couple of years. We also exposed how Sheila Jackson Lee said that she's going to raise the proposal of monies from 12 million to who knows how much. We've exposed the fact that this is a flawed document and that the people that are pushing it are not being specific. They are speaking to Wakanda and Zamunda. They're not speaking to quote unquote Black America at all. They're speaking to, and when I say Black America, I mean America's descendants of slavery, to be specific. We showed the edits that are needed in this bill and why they're needed. I'm at the point where, and I don't claim to be no master of any of this stuff, we're learning as we go along. I feed off of my brothers, particularly my brother Logic and his political experience. But I'm a quick learner, and I will say that I believe that the bill should just be killed in the House and a whole new bill needs to be presented. This is my belief. It's my feeling. There's too much confusion and trouble around this particular piece of proposed legislation for it to be anything that we, who I guess we can call the common people, should take serious. The citizenry, the people who are not in the pockets of corporate Democrats, particularly. We know ain't no Republicans going to support the bill. We had to get on here and let the family know that this is problematic and that we have to begin to centralize our focus on HR 40 because there's a possibility that this thing is going to try to get rammed through over the next couple of months, and that with the possible election of Jim Crow Joe Biden, as I call him, and Kamala Harris, we already know what's going to happen with that bill. It's going to get approved. The Congress is going to approve it. Well,
Jim Crow Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Crow Joe wants Native Americans included, so they would have to amend that bill to put to make sure Native Americans in there.
Come on.
That's the only way he would.
He would bring in Ice Cube.
Nah.
They want to sit Ice Cube on the commission.
Man, look. I'm trying not to get too pissed off because I'm trying to go to sleep in the next 4 or 5 hours, but I don't even want to think about that. When you talk about putting Native Americans on there, no, sir. No, we don't. Come on, man. Like, we already did the show on that. We're not having that. We're not having that.
So
go ahead.
I just want to say before we close this thing out, man, understand that politics is a very serious thing. We have to be dead set on it. And I know that when you're doing politics, there's always going to be things that come up. And you just have to position yourself and use yourself wisely. And understanding that, like, you have to know certain things. And among those things is how to get active and put yourself in a place where you can be effective with your politics. So there's not, like, when we're dealing with all kind of political things. And I'm gonna bring up another thing on why a congressional focus is of the utmost important right now before I leave y'all today. One more thing, right? this is the 2020, and we did the census this year. Understand that now the information has been collected to redraw the maps again. What am I talking about? I'm talking about gerrymandering and redistricting. And with the way they redistrict the maps and the way they draw the maps literally helps them. They can speculate like stock market investors and actually predict every outcome to like a 99% degree for the next 10 years because of how that works. And we won't be able to get back after it until 2030. So this is if you're not congressionally focused, if you wasn't before, this is the time you need to have a congressional focus now, because we'll have to live with these crazy districts and this crazy gerrymandering for another decade. You understand what I'm saying? If you don't understand how horrible this is, please take some time out your day and just look up how awful gerrymandering is and what gerrymandering does and how it's been used. And the last thing that I want to say is that when you are doing Black politics, we have to do it in a way that makes sense and that is effective. If we are always the number one people who are being manipulated at the polls, then you got to be a poll watcher. You have to get involved in politics, not just with your voice, even though we need and we love your voice, but we need more than your voice. We need you at the polls being a poll watcher. We need you at the election offices and the election sites being election judges. We need you being ballot counters. You understand? There's so much that goes on. We need you being registered agents and registering people to vote. We need you to be educating people to vote. We need you to be understanding politics in your area, building your coalition where you live, and running for office. We cannot continue to try to fight the power. This whole show is called Be the Power for a reason. You can't be the power at home. You have to get up and do something. We can't keep arguing about what we're not getting from the present representation. We have to replace the representation. And you cannot do that just by talking about it. You have to actually go out and register some people to vote. Without a serious voter registration campaign, you playing games in this, and you're not really doing nothing. We are sitting at 12.5% of the qualified electorate right now. We are getting passed up. And if we don't start getting to our cousins, our nephews, everybody that is about to get election rights and being able to vote and be able to get their franchise, we need to be getting to them and telling them how important their franchise is and putting it into action the right way. We have to get busy doing real politics, the stuff that don't come with no glory, the stuff that don't come with no visibility and a whole bunch of pats on the back. You have to get out there and protect the vote. That's what I'm talking about, by being poll watchers, poll election judges, ballot counters. I'm gonna give you one big piece. I keep saying I'm gonna give you one more, but I keep wanting to give you more before I get off. This is how easy it is to get into politics. And I promise I'm gonna leave you this little jewel and get up out of there. Whatever party you with, I don't care what party you with, because I'm policy focused. I'm not focused on parties. If you're a Republican or a Democrat, wherever you live, find out who your county chair person is. Get in contact with them. Tell them that you have identified. First of all, you have to do some of your own homework real quick. Find the vacant precincts in your area, right? And if you live in a place that don't have precincts, they have a precinct equivalent, okay? So I know some of y'all live in a funny state, y'all got parishes and different things like that, but they have a precinct equivalent, right? Contact, and they have a thing called a precinct committeeman. So contact your chairperson, your party chair in the county, and say, I have identified a vacancy in the county, one of the county precincts. You don't have to live in this county. Say that I have identified one of the vacant precincts and I would like to help fill that role. You can be appointed overnight. You can be appointed, and then now guess what? You are a precinct committeeman. You are a local official who is in charge of the election site. As a precinct committeeman, you have a position and a role to fulfill during elections. You also have a role in a position to fill in the party far as how it shapes its platform. And so if you want to get involved, that is a good little key to unlock the door. And I'll expound on that in the future as we build political soldiers and reparations.
Come on, hold up. I got one question for you, bro. Mm-hmm. So what would it look like if we were able to get, like, let's just say like 200, well, let's just say 100 new precinct committeemen across the country or whatever for the next election, the next election cycle?
Well, to be quite honest, like, if the precinct committeemen actually shape the party platform. So if you really wanted to shape the platform and actually like this is how you do it on a level, on the foundational level of the party is really built on the backs of the precinct committeemen. They're the ones who decide the primary roles. They're the ones who decide who is going to be running in the primary and who the party is going to support. They're the ones who craft the party platform at the bottom. If you notice, all of the if you go do your research now, all of the people in high office keep their precinct committeeman roles because it's a role you don't have to sacrifice when you go out for another role. Even Obama, when he was president, he was still precinct committeeman. I promise you, this is real because how important it is. Your vote as a precinct committeeman is weighted and valued by everybody that voted in your precinct. So if let's say you had 170 people vote in your precinct, when you vote in the party, your vote is worth 170 people. Right? There's 170 votes. So it's that heavy. So you got to, and then when you enhance your precinct by registering people to vote, they understand how important that is. But you can actually craft party platform and reshape party identity altogether if you had enough precinct committeemen around the country to do it.
So continuing this little Q&A, how can we use that to put pressure for reparations as far as maybe reaching the congressional level?
I mean, there's a lot of ways. As a precinct committeeman, you doing it that way, you would have to have a strong coalition of precinct committeemen where you live to actually have an influence on a local level to get the county party to have that position, so that when the state and when the state candidates and the state senators and the state reps come to the county to sit down and do their sit downs, they will have that conversation, and then that state, then it would have to metastasize, right? Because I've talked about the smallest part. We know that reparations is a federal thing. So what I'm talking about is shaping party platform and party identity, which takes time. I'm just talking about how to get in there. I wouldn't say that would be the best way to have a reparations. You need to use your constituency in a different way if you want to impact reparations, and that's going directly. See, if you do it the precinct committeeman way, that's too slow to do it that way. We need to impact reparations now. So we would have to use our constituency to put pressure on the people who actually making the legislation, either running candidates against them or letting them know that we are dissatisfied with their position on the matter. So we have to understand it in that way. But we can do a different show, and we can get all into that. We are at the end of this one.
See, we said to give y'all a taste of what's to come from that show, because that's going to be a powerful show too.
Indeed.
Brother Josh, did you give a closeout already?
No. I just wanted to say, hey, I don't have a whole lot to say, man. I just wanted to say, look, HR 40 is a problem. We have to get it fixed. It needs to be something we talk about all the time. And I think I already said this, but if anybody has any way to reach out to I don't care if it's a corporation, I don't care if it's a local politician, a state rep, or anybody that you can use to put pressure, to find a way to put pressure on. Look, man, what I wanted to do, I meant to do it, but I slipped my mind, was to go and pull up the Judiciary Committee because in the Judiciary Committee, that's the committee that HR 40 is being heard on. And not only HR 40, but S 1083. S 1083 is also the Senate companion bill. So we want to talk. We want to get in contact with find whatever kind of way, whether it's email, calling, get somebody to call them, call some of their donors, and if you got some connect to be able to do something with the donor, we have to be able to influence them to edit this bill. Or we have another option. We're not going to talk about that right now. We're going to wait and see how this thing plays out. But we may have to weigh some other options out here to get this bill the way we need it to get done, whether it be edit or kill it. Right now we're talking about editing it. So we're trying to weigh our options on how we can affect this bill being edited. But hey, let it get through markup. If we don't see the markups that we like, or maybe a little bit before that, we might have to take some other moves to kill it. But we got to get active on this thing, man. We got to get active, and this is serious, man. We cannot let these people we cannot let these people rob us of this moment where reparations is getting attention. We cannot let these people think that they can just make their small little pittance of a livelihood off of something as serious as reparations, as justice for our people.
Brother Ali.
Yes, indeed. Well, I think it's, a lot of great points have been raised. I think it's a lot of food for thought for everybody. We got to stay vigilant, stay on top of this whole matter to try to push these changes to this bill. And at the end of the day, like I said, we have to really focus on Congress, right? Because this is a congressional maneuver that we're trying to do with this whole bill. And at the end of the day, too, it depends on the Senate. I think if the Senate doesn't flip, it's my opinion. If the Senate doesn't flip to Democrat, I don't know how far this whole thing is going to go anyway. That's just my thoughts on it.
I wanted to say one more thing, y'all. Look, being a reparationist is about we talked about this. It's about making more reparations. We have to grow this thing large and loud. And part of doing that is getting people to get invested in the idea of reparations. Part of it is education, but people make decisions based off of emotions and they back it up with logic. So what I've found in having discussions with family members and friends to get them to make the emotional decision to get involved as a reparationist, what I found to be effective is if we can start getting people to go and look into their ancestry, go and look into your ancestry and get them to look into their ancestry, get them to have conversations around the life of their ancestors and what they went through, the times that they grew up in, what kind of plantation life they were dealing with their family. And not only that, what was the cost of the trauma? What was the cost of the stolen wealth? What was the cost of the stolen time, the stolen labor, the stolen children? You know what I'm saying? The stolen freedom. What was all of those costs? And where would their life be? Where would their great-grandparents' lives be if they got land? Where would their children be? If they could go to college? Where would their children be if they could own a home? Where would their children be if they weren't denied employment and they had to pick tobacco or pick cotton or something like that and be somebody's sharecropper? Where would your life be today? If it was built, if your family got to build wealth and build on the opportunities that were denied from. See, when I got people to try to rewrite the story from what if we got reparations, right? What if then they start to, and they trace that, they see that people that was enslaved, their great-grandparents was sold, great whatever was sold. They see that a 13-year-old girl was sold for $1,000 or something like that. That is something that, that really gets people emotionally involved. So then when you start telling them about the data and all this kind of stuff, they're way more receptive, and they're fighting. They become a reparationist. So that's just one piece of advice. I would advise all of us to encourage people to go and look into their ancestry, and then just paint the vision, try to get them to see the vision of what life would be like if it was different. When you get people to make a decision based off emotions, they'll go and take the backing it up part with logic. So that's what I wanted to share with y'all. Peace.
Definitely. And we just sitting and waiting patiently for our determination letter for the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, right? Because that's a part of what we want to do. That's a part of how we want to contribute to this push. And a lot of it does come from an awareness. Brother Josh just shared an excellent story about getting people to look into their ancestry. And I think when that picture is painted in a person's mind, and they can say, oh, wow, man, my great-great-great-grandmother was a slave and this and that, and then they was sold, or the family was broken up, and my great-great-great aunt went over here, and now I'm connected to some family. I think that picture, and I urge us all to do that. I urge us all to look into our family history, which is one of the reasons why I pulled up my family tree on air. Pulled it up on air so that, number one, to show how easy it can be done. And in many cases, right? I'm not going to say all, but in many cases. And two, so that people could see we have a lineage here in the United States of America that is exclusive to us as a people. And as reparation is, we have to put in a lot of work in that regard, and do whatever it is that we can to push this thing forward. But like Josh just explained, it really starts with the understanding of you and your family, if you're able to find that information, because it might propel you to know who owned our ancestors and the hardships that they had to go through. Now, I'm not saying things are easy for us now, but they are way easier now than they were then. I think we tend to, because we're in the now, we don't understand what they went through. And I get that from a lot of anti-reparationists who are ADOS. So, I just wanted to add that, the camelback on what my brother Josh was saying, because that definitely was a powerful point. And I'm going to leave y'all with show's motto as we close out. Don't just fight the power, become the power. And then you will have the power to make a change. And with that, say peace.
I am a reparationist.
I am a reparationist. And in my Jesse Jackson voice, I am a reparationist. Peace.
Peace.